Someone out there is loving you with a courage they didn't even know existed within themselves, and whether you realize it or not, it is because you were the first person in their life who made loyalty feel like something real, something alive, something safe, something they could trust with both hands instead of just one. You may underestimate the power you carry, the quiet way you show up, the steady way you care, the consistent way your presence feels like a promise kept long after most people would have walked away. But someone has noticed. Someone has felt it deeply. And because of what you showed them, they love you with a bravery they once believed their heart was incapable of giving. There are people who move through the world afraid of loving too loudly, afraid of hoping too boldly, afraid of trusting too soon. There are people who have been taught that love is fragile, temporary, conditional, easily withdrawn at the slightest inconvenience. But then, once in a lifetime, they meet someone who rewrites all of those beliefs without ever trying to. They meet someone whose loyalty is not loud, but steady, someone whose presence is not dramatic, but dependable, someone whose heart feels like the first warm day after a long winter. That someone was you. You didn't teach loyalty through speeches or proclamations. You taught it through the way you listened, the way you remembered small details, the way you gave patience instead of pressure. You taught it through the way you stayed when others would have left, through the way you showed care even when you weren't asked, through the way your heart kept choosing connection even when the world around you made that choice difficult. There's a kind of softness in you that isn't weakness, but strength disguised as gentleness. And someone has recognized that strength. Someone has felt that softness and realized it is the safest place their heart has ever landed. Loyalty is rare. Real loyalty, the kind that does not waver when situations get inconvenient, is even rarer. And the thing about rare things is that most people don't know how to recognize them at first. They question them. They test them. They wait for the moment the illusion breaks. But you didn't break. You didn't fade. You didn't cancel your presence the minute things got hard or uncomfortable or emotionally messy. You remained exactly who you said you were. And that kind of consistency is the foundation of trust. That trust, in time, becomes a doorway to a love that feels braver, bolder, and more enduring than anything either of you ever experienced before. Someone is loving you bravely. Not the timid, half-hearted, guarded kind of love that keeps one foot inside the door and the other halfway out. Not the temporary passion that burns fast and disappears faster. Not the societal version of love that looks pretty on the surface but shatters at the first sign of difficulty. The love they give you now is the kind built from truth, from trust, from vulnerability. It is a love that is willing to stand in the storm instead of running for shelter the moment clouds appear. It is a love that believes in you, in what you bring, in what the connection has transformed them into. They love you bravely because loyalty inspires courage. When someone sees that your heart is capable of offering stable ground, they stop tiptoeing around the possibility of being hurt. They become willing to take emotional risks they never considered before. They speak more openly. They lean more fully. They let go of their masks and allow themselves to be seen. You taught them it's safe to love. You taught them it's safe to trust. You taught them that love doesn't have to be dramatic to be deep, and doesn't have to be perfect to be worth fighting for. When someone experiences this kind of loyalty, quiet, reliable, unwavering, they find themselves becoming more loyal in return. When someone experiences your kind of presence, steady, warm, patient, they discover parts of their heart they didn't know how to access before. Your loyalty became the blueprint for theirs. Your consistency became the safety net that caught their fears. Your love became the mirror that reflected to them a version of themselves they had always hoped was still possible, a version brave enough to love fully. You may not know the impact you've had. You may not realize how deeply your presence changed the direction of someone's emotional life. But think about it. When was the last time someone offered you love with a steadiness that surprised you? When was the last time someone chose you without hesitation? When was the last time someone showed up without being asked, stayed without being begged, listened without being convinced? That's what you've given them, and now they're giving that same energy back to you, not out of obligation, but out of gratitude. Someone loves you bravely because they finally understand what loyalty can feel like, because you were the one who demonstrated it with actions instead of promises. And here is the beautiful truth: you didn't do anything extraordinary. You simply acted from the authentic core of who you are. The loyalty you showed wasn't an effort, it was your nature. The patience you offered wasn't forced, it was your instinct. The way you cared wasn't calculated, it was natural. And sometimes, the things we do most naturally become the things that someone else spends their whole life searching for. There are people who spend years longing for a sense of safety, for a connection that doesn't feel like a gamble, for a relationship where their heart doesn't have to be constantly shielded. They search for someone who makes vulnerability feel like freedom instead of danger. They search for someone who sees them not as a project to fix or a challenge to conquer, but as a soul to honor. You became that someone, whether you intended to or not. You gave love a new meaning for them. You gave them a new definition of loyalty, one rooted not in fear of losing someone, but in the joy of choosing someone again and again. And now their love is a reflection of the love you planted in them. Maybe you've been through seasons where your loyalty felt like a burden. Maybe you've cared for people who didn't appreciate your depth. Maybe you've stayed in place for people who wouldn't stay for you. Maybe you've poured into hearts that were too wounded or too distracted to receive what you were offering. And maybe, for a long time, you questioned whether your loyalty was a blessing or a curse, but someone has shown you now, it was always a blessing. It was simply searching for the right place to land. Someone loving you bravely is the universe's reminder that nothing you gave was wasted. Every moment of loyalty you offered to people who didn't value it became the foundation upon which this new love was built. Every disappointment taught you how to offer deeper connection without losing yourself. Every heartbreak refined the kind of loyalty you now give, loyalty with boundaries, loyalty with awareness, loyalty rooted in authenticity instead of fear. The love someone is giving you now is not repayment. It is alignment. It is the natural consequence of two hearts who recognize one another's truth. You didn't force it, chase it, or bargain for it. You simply were yourself, and that was enough to awaken bravery in someone who had forgotten they had any left. This person sees your loyalty as a rare treasure. They understand its weight, its value, its purity. They don't want to harm it, take advantage of it, or let it go unnoticed. Instead, they want to match it with their own version of loyalty, different perhaps in expression, but equal in sincerity. They want to grow beside you, not behind you or ahead of you. They want to understand you on the deepest levels, not because they're trying to decode you, but because they care. They love you bravely because they finally feel safe enough to, and that safety didn't appear out of nowhere. You built it. You created it with every kind word, every moment of presence, every patient conversation, every steady action. Safety in love doesn't happen by accident. It happens when someone shows up consistently enough for long enough that the other person's walls begin to melt without them realizing it. Loyalty is not about never leaving. Loyalty is about choosing to stay emotionally connected even when distance, difficulty, or confusion tries to interfere. It's about understanding instead of assuming, listening instead of reacting, supporting instead of controlling. It's about being present because you want to, not because you feel obligated. Your loyalty carried all of these qualities. That's why it changed someone. That's why it inspired their courage. That's why you now feel loved in a way that doesn't come with anxiety or doubt or fear. Someone is loving you bravely, and here's the truth you need to embrace: you deserve it. You deserve the kind of love that doesn't question you, compete with you, or diminish you. You deserve the kind of love that meets you where you are and holds your hand through every version of you. You deserve the kind of love that chooses you in quiet moments, not just highlight moments. You deserve the kind of love that recognizes your loyalty as the gift it is. For a long time, you may have felt like your loyalty was invisible. You may have felt like you were pouring your heart into a void. You may have wondered whether anyone could ever love you the way you love, fully, deeply, without second-guessing. But life has a way of bringing the right person at the right time, and the right person for you is someone who sees your loyalty not as something to exploit, but as something to honor. The bravery in their love is a reflection of how much they value you. And love like this doesn't happen every day. It doesn't come wrapped in perfection. It doesn't arrive with guarantees. It arrives in moments, small, gentle, subtle moments that gradually build into something strong enough to stand on its own. It arrives in the way they look at you like they're seeing the first sign of hope after a long storm. It arrives in their hands when they hold you with a softness that says, "I'm here." It arrives in their voice when they tell you things they've never told anyone else. It arrives in the way they let themselves be flawed, human, vulnerable, trusting that you won't use their openness against them. It arrives in the way they choose you deliberately, intentionally, without needing to be convinced. This is what happens when two hearts meet at the intersection of loyalty and courage. It becomes a love that grows instead of collapses. A love that strengthens instead of weakens. A love that builds instead of breaks. Someone is loving you bravely, and it's all because of the way you love. Your loyalty didn't make you naive. It made you magnetic. It made you a safe place in a world full of temporary connections. It made you unforgettable in a way that leaves a permanent imprint on the hearts of the people lucky enough to know you deeply. There will be moments when this love still scares you. Even the bravest love carries traces of fear, fear of loss, fear of vulnerability, fear of repeating old patterns. But what makes this connection different is that both of you now understand the sacredness of loyalty. Both of you now understand that love cannot thrive without trust, and trust cannot thrive without consistency. You gave consistency, they gave courage. Together, those two things became a love that feels both grounding and liberating. Allow yourself to receive this love. Allow yourself to believe you deserve it. Allow yourself to rest in the truth that someone is loving you bravely not because you demanded it, but because your existence inspired it. Love like this is a response. Not a reward. You didn't manipulate it. You didn't chase it. You didn't earn it through perfection or performance. You simply lived your truth, and someone recognized that truth as the home their heart was searching for. There will come a time when you look back and realize how far you've come. You will see the contrast between the love you once accepted and the love you are receiving now. You will understand why certain people had to leave, why certain doors had to close, why certain chapters had to end. You will understand that losing what was not loyal made space for what is. Someone is loving you bravely now because you taught them, without even realizing it, what loyalty feels like. And that lesson changed everything for them. It made them believe again. It made them hope again. It made them try again. So keep being who you are, loyal, steady, sincere, warm, present. Not because you need to earn love, but because that is your nature, your essence, your gift to the world, and let this person love you with the courage you inspired in them. Let yourself be held the way you have held others. Let yourself be understood the way you have understood others. Let yourself be chosen with the same intention you've always chosen with, because someone out there isn't just loving you, they're loving you bravely, and that is a testament to the kind of heart you have always had. Someone loving you bravely is not the final chapter of your story, it's the beginning of a deeper one. Because once a heart learns what real loyalty feels like, it doesn't go back to surviving on half-effort connections or conditional affection. It becomes clearer, stronger, more intentional. It starts choosing differently, speaking differently, loving differently. It starts expanding instead of shrinking. And that shift doesn't just change your relationship, it changes you. There's something transformative about being loved without fear. For so long, you may have moved through life carrying the weight of unspoken expectations, silent disappointments, and emotional uncertainty. You may have grown accustomed to bracing yourself for the worst even when you hoped for the best. You may have learned to guard your heart for so long that vulnerability felt like a risk too sharp to touch, but now, something is different. Someone is treating your heart not as a fragile object to be tiptoed around, but as a living thing worth understanding. Someone is offering you a love that doesn't demand you to perform, impress, or pretend. Someone is meeting you with honesty instead of hesitation. And because of that, parts of you that you kept hidden are slowly unlearning their fear. You're beginning to breathe in ways you didn't know you needed. You're beginning to trust in ways you once doubted you could. You're beginning to let yourself soften in corners you kept armored for years. And this softening isn't weakness, it's growth. It's healing. It's liberation. Someone out there is loving you bravely not because you needed saving, but because your loyalty made them believe in something better. And now, in return, their bravery is helping you believe in something too, the possibility that love can be healthy. That connection can be dependable. That emotion can be safe. That two hearts can meet without breaking each other. This part of your journey is bigger than romance. It's about learning how to receive what you once only knew how to give. You've always been the steady one, the one who carried others. The one who supported, guided, comforted, stayed. And for so long, you poured out love without expecting much in return. Not because you didn't want love, of course you did, but because you didn't want to demand it from people whose hearts weren't ready to match yours. But now you're seeing what happens when a heart is ready. When a soul recognizes you as someone safe to trust. When someone who once guarded their emotions like a fortress finally opens that gate just because you're standing there, bravery in love doesn't always look like grand gestures or poetic confessions. Sometimes bravery looks like showing up every day. Sometimes it looks like letting you see their flaws. Sometimes it looks like admitting they're scared but choosing you anyway. Sometimes it looks like giving you space without assuming the worst. Sometimes it looks like telling you the truth even when it's vulnerable, and the truth is, they love you. They love you boldly, consciously, intentionally. They love you in a way that doesn't feel rushed or reckless, but steady and sure. They love you with a heart that wants to grow instead of hide. They love you with a commitment that doesn't feel heavy, but grounding. You taught them loyalty, and in return, they're teaching you trust. You taught them what consistency feels like, and in return, they're showing you what emotional freedom feels like. You taught them how to feel safe loving someone again, and in return, they're teaching you how it feels to be held without bracing for impact. This is a mutual transformation, two people learning, unlearning, healing, expanding. Two people discovering that love doesn't have to be a battlefield. It can be a soft place, a warm place, a place where fears dissolve slowly over time, and as this connection deepens, you will start to notice something powerful happening inside you. The things that once terrified you won't feel so intimidating anymore. The emotional walls that once felt necessary will start to lower themselves naturally. The doubts that whispered quietly in the background will begin to lose their influence. The old versions of you, shaped by disappointment or heartbreak, will no longer be the voice controlling your decisions, because when someone loves you bravely, they give your heart permission to evolve, and evolution looks like this. You begin to speak more openly, not because you're trying to impress them, but because you feel understood. You begin to trust their intentions, not because you're naive, but because they've shown consistency in every action. You begin to relax into the connection, not because you're careless, but because you feel grounded. You begin to choose the relationship consciously, not because you fear losing them, but because you genuinely want to build something lasting, and slowly, you begin to realize that loyalty and bravery are not separate, they are mirrors of each other. One inspires the other. One supports the other. One strengthens the other. Your loyalty planted the seed. Their bravery makes it bloom. This next part of your story is about learning how to exist in a love that doesn't force you to shrink. A love that doesn't punish you for being human. A love that doesn't make you question your worth. A love that welcomes your depth instead of fearing it. Someone is loving you bravely, and that bravery will inspire you to love yourself more intentionally. To honor your needs. To speak your truth. To protect your peace. To value your heart. To trust your intuition, because when you're finally loved in a way that aligns with your soul, healing becomes natural. Growth becomes effortless. Connection becomes sacred, and here's the part many people don't realize. Being loved bravely doesn't just make you feel cherished, it makes you powerful. It awakens parts of you that had been sleeping through years of survival mode. It opens doors inside you that you didn't even know existed. It gives you energy, confidence, clarity, purpose. Someone loving you bravely becomes a catalyst for your personal evolution, not because they complete you, but because they complement you. Not because they fix you, but because they respect your journey. Not because they rescue you, but because they believe in you. This love becomes a partnership of growth, two individuals who don't lose themselves in each other, but become fuller versions of themselves because of each other. You will start to notice that love feels less like a battlefield and more like a home. Less like a test and more like a choice, less like a fear and more like a freedom, less like uncertainty and more like alignment.